Good morning. It's 8:30 and I'm calling the Clay County Board of Commissioners meeting for April 9th, 2024 to order. First item we have on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I'll offer a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approval of agenda passes. Do want to make a note on there on our consent agenda. We have donations from Johnson Auto Repair to support the Clay County Sheriff's Office Canine Program. We are very grateful for those donations. It's a great program, and the public support we've gotten from Johnson's Auto is gratifying, and we're grateful for it. Next, we have citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens who want to speak on any item that's not on the agenda? Any citizens who want to speak on any item that's not on the agenda? Steve, do we have anybody virtually?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
All righty. Next, we have approval of payment and vouchers. I'm going to try that again. Approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That passes. Next, we have approval of minutes from March 26, 2024, and the work group session minutes from March 19, 2024.
I'll move to approve those.
Second.
A motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Approval of the minutes passes. And next, we've got request approval of the annual report for the county feedlot program for 2023. And we have Gabe Foltz from the Soil Water Conservation District technician. Good morning.
Morning. So I'm here just to get approval for the 2023 Feedlot Officer Annual Report. We had with the MPCA, we had our review here a few weeks ago. Everything went well. I think we're back in good standing with them, and I don't foresee any issues, I guess, in the near future with them. So everything's been going good, and I'm just here if there's any questions at all that any of you have.
Any questions for Gabe? Paul?
Yeah, Gabe, why don't you tell them where we stand on numbers and that type?
Number of feedlots, yep.
Yeah.
So currently, we're at 77 feedlots in the county. When we started the program, I think the Soil and Water District took over the program in '08, somewhere in there. We had about 120 feedlots. Next year, we'll be sending out a letter to all the feedlots to re-register. So I anticipate a lower number yet, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get down into the 50s or 60s. So the number of feedlots keeps dropping down. So.
I want to thank Gabe for the great work he does with the district. He's been in charge of this for, 2 years now, I think?
Yep.
And he's still from a dairy farm, so he knows all about feedlots and has great rapport with the individuals out there in the business. So thank you.
Thank you.
What does it take to be a feedlot? How many cattle do you have to have?
At least 50 animal units. Unless you're in a shoreland area, then it's 10 animal units.
Okay.
So there are a number of feedlots out there that are just under that threshold. So
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, Gabe, you have done a great job, and we appreciate it, and keep up the good work. We appreciate the report.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, we would be looking for the board to approve recognizing the acknowledging the report.
I'll make a motion to approve the report.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There we go. Thank you, Steve. Next, we have Sheriff Empting. Request approval for lease of 9 vehicles with Enterprise Commercial Leasing for 2025. Sheriff, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board. Thank you for having me here this morning. I am here to request the lease of 9 vehicles for 2025. We're going to be replacing 8 vehicles and adding a 9th for our CSO is what that is. We'd be adding a Chevy pickup for him to do his functions as a CSO. As you can see, what we have available is $434,493. And what the lease amount would be for 2025 would be $131,933. Mr. Chair, I know last year you had requested also what it would cost to upfit the vehicles. It's hard to get that for 2025 as we've not met with our upfitter yet, but I do have the 2024 numbers. And if we can stay, Tahoe to Tahoe, that is not so bad in price. That's relatively between $6,000 and $7,000. For example, if we switch our K9 car, which is a Tahoe, to another Tahoe, that's $6,438. And when we go from a different model, for example, a Ford Explorer to a Tahoe, that is roughly $12,697. So trying our best to stay with the same model as it is very cost effective for the county. And it's best for the county. We're just having very, very difficult time finding vehicles right now. For example, I ordered 6 cars for 2024. I was promised 2 of the 6. They were able to find a 3rd, but I'm still 3 cars short, and I don't know what I'm going to do moving forward other than maybe trying to go out on my own here to see if I can find cars. I don't know what else I can do moving forward for cars. They're just not coming in. Had I known I was going to be in this position last year, I would have been able to plan for it accordingly, but I didn't know I was going to be in this position until about 6 weeks ago.
When will you know if you can get your vehicles from Enterprise?
I have no idea. I'm not getting any type of date other than that they're trying to find something, but they're just not available. We're always told that there's something out there that's causing the supply chain issue. Now, the latest one is going to be the Francis Scott Key Bridge that was hit. That's going to cause another supply chain issue, according to Enterprise. So it's one thing after another, it seems like.
And I assume the private market for locating police vehicles at state price is pretty skimpy.
It's out there. I did a quick Google search, and I did find some vehicles available, but they were in Pennsylvania. So then you would have to get them here. And they were about $12,000 more than what we had approved last year for the vehicles. So it's a significant increase.
I guess the reality of this is it's to be continued no matter what we vote on today. It's still up in the air whether we can do this.
Correct. I'm trying to get these ordered and on Enterprise's desk as soon as I possibly can, as they're telling me that Chevy will open up their 2025 vehicle orders in May. So that's why I'm here this early.
Any other questions for the sheriff? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I think it's a great program. I'll make a motion to approve the leasing of the 9 vehicles with Enterprise for 2025.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have motion and a second. Any further discussion? Just, I think you've done due diligence in making us aware of the difficulties we may be looking at. So we'll go ahead and, all in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign? Okay. We'll just keep us informed and we'll hope for the best.
Thank you. And I have been communicating frequently with the county administrator in regards to this, so he's fully aware of the situation we're in too.
Okay, I appreciate it, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Okay, we have County Attorney Justin Sorum. Request approval of contract for Township Bridge design.
County engineer,
What did I say?
attorney.
Oh.
I don't think I went to
Right.
law school.
Brian Melton is our current county attorney.
Just for today, though.
I would not want an attorney building my bridge.
Yeah, good morning. So I'm here requesting approval of a contract for Township Bridge design. So this was the design that we went out for an RFP for. We did receive 4 proposals, and after reviewing them and grading them, Houston Engineering was selected. So I'm here requesting approval of the design contract with Houston Engineering. It is for a bridge design in Glendon Township. So Glendon Township would be responsible for the first $10,000, then after that, Township Bridge would cover the rest.
Any questions for Justin?
I guess just as a side note, I have worked with Glendon Township quite a bit on this one, so they're aware of it.
I'll offer a motion to approve the design contract with Houston Engineering for the replacement of a Glendon Township bridge.
A second.
Have motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Steve.
Commissioner Mojo, does that include the estimated fee price of $116,382.20?
Yes, as presented in the packet.
Fine.
Anything further? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Thank you. And then just as an FYI, road restrictions on the south half of the county did come off on Monday, and then the north half come off on Friday.
Well, I think we don't have to sweat too much on flooding this year.
No.
Happily, so.
Nope, and all our blades are out today. With the moisture, it's definitely helping.
Now we just have to worry about all the soil that's on the gravel after it blew so bad last week.
Yep, I agree.
That'll be an issue once it rains.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Janelle Cheney, District Supervisor for our corrections, and Dale Arnold, District Supervisor. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today. First and foremost, I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce to you Dale Arnold. He will be the new district supervisor serving Clay County. I'll give him a minute or two to offer a little bit about himself.
Yeah, I think I've already had the pleasure of meeting a couple of you somewhat informally. And, so I don't want to waste too much of your time, but I'll give you a little bit of a background. I come from Tri-County, Polk, Norman, Red Lake, up north. Up there I was a supervisor in the probation department for, well, at least since 2018. While in the supervisory role, my primary emphasis was on evidence-based practices and training staff within the state of Minnesota on how to utilize strategies of working with people that we supervise. And that is kind of, in a nutshell, what brought me into this position here in Clay County.
Thank you. Today we're here to offer to you the comprehensive plan. Due to the legislative action this year, our agency is required to do a comprehensive plan, and I believe we'll be updating that every 4 years. So we'll be coming before the board to ask for the approval of a comprehensive plan, typically every 4 years. We have a new budget from the state, some additional dollars, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, but just kind of wanted to walk through the comprehensive plan. It's kind of a breakdown of the who, what, and how we do what we do. Clay County is a part of a larger district. We serve 6 other counties: Wilkin, Traverse, Big Stone, Stevens, Grant, and Pope County. And so the initial pages will kind of lay out what we call our org chart, our organizational chart, and how that kind of flows. Talks about our staffing. Clay County does have an amazing advisory board. It's probably, there's a lot of individuals listed. A handful of people can come as scheduled because it's around court and all kinds of things that are going on. But we have a great group of people that really collaborate together and interact and discuss the things that impact justice-involved people, and so that's really been beneficial while I've worked within this county, and I'm excited for Dale to be a part of that. It kind of talks about the training requirements for the Department of Corrections. As you know, you have a contracted office as well, that all the same training is the expectation. If we get to page 5, it starts to talk about what's been going on most recently within the field of corrections, and that's the Council of State Government and the Justice Reinvestment Initiative. There's been some collaboration on a higher level, an outside organization to come in. I've talked a little bit about the 3 delivery systems within the state of Minnesota, and really trying to bring us all onto one page so that supervision within the community looks similar across the state of Minnesota. Obviously, different counties will have different nuances, but for the most part, supervision looks the same. Dale will talk a little bit about starting with the risk assessment tool and how that kind of plays into it. Page 6 talks a little bit about something unique to Clay County. Not in every county, but Clay County has a pretrial support program. We do have an agent. Attorneys can recommend to the court, and the court can order that an individual participate in a pretrial supervision program. The main focus of that is to provide reminders of court hearings, trying to support that individual in making their hearings, so we have less warrants, less need for law enforcement to be out there trying to find people and get them to their court hearings, offering some resources, and then also some testing in between court hearings. I'm going to turn it over to Dale just to talk briefly about the biggest area of our change moving forward is the intentional practice of our agents.
So agents coming into the field are required to go through a training process that's offered by the state. And in that training process, we teach them a variety of methods of working with the staff or the clients that we work with. One of the things that we teach at the academy is the use of a level of service case management inventory. It's an assessment tool the state uses not only classify somebody's level of supervision, but to help break down the life areas that they might want to work on to reduce the likelihood that they ever end up in this type of situation or getting involved in the criminal justice system. We work with staff on how to target those areas through the use of intervention strategies, cognitive behavioral programming, and those individuals that get caught up in the legal system might have a variety of different pathways to the legal system, as you can probably imagine. One of the biggest areas that we work with people on is antisocial thinking, and so not necessarily like just shying away from people, but really working on like risky thinking, thoughts that might get them involved with contact with law enforcement. So it's a difficult task. It requires a lot of training, and that's been kind of my specialty area. So.
Next, I'll talk, kind of focus on the budget, which is probably where most people want to know. Some funding did come out through legislator additional funding for field services. And so if you look on page 11, it kind of gives a breakdown of that. The biggest highlight is historically, the counties have not been reimbursed at that 50%. Due to lack of funding. Counties had been reimbursed for their contract staff at about 26% to 32%. And now, first and foremost, with the additional legislative dollars, the state has addressed that. They've brought reimbursement to the counties to 50%. And so you'll see the county is responsible for that 50%. That aligns with what's in statute. So the county should see additional dollars within their budget overall. In addition to that, there are other expenses that are incurred, and so at the end of the day, Clay County did not have any additional funds to put towards additional staff. However, because we're part of a bigger district, we partnered with a couple others to create one position without any extra cost to the county, but create an extra position that would take on the minimum risk individual, the lowest risk individuals, so that our current staff could focus on the medium risk and the high risk individuals. So that should lighten up caseloads, allow them to focus on that. In addition to that, like Dale offered, this evidence-based practice approach really takes practice, 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 skill building. And so we've hired, they're not in place yet, but hiring an evidence-based specialist that will do that practice training with staff. And so that will be a shared position, but be able to offer local trainings and support for this staff towards their evidence-based practice tools use, approaches, those kind of things. And really, I believe that the DOC has done a really, really good job. Most recently, really focusing on training and keeping the ball rolling. Sometimes we go to trainings and then 6 months later, a year later, we're like, remember that training that we did? What did we do with that? And we don't really continue it. But the Department of Corrections really is taking step-by-step practice towards that and keeping it going, sustaining that approach. So you'll see some of the funds going to that. I will note Clay County was recognized as submitting one of the highest numbers of discharges. We are good at knowing where to focus, kind of letting the low-hanging fruit go. And so those that are low risk, those that were eligible for early discharge, were given consideration. This aligns with dosage supervision, where you kind of look at what folks have done, contributed, had that maintenance period, and we could discharge those. Unfortunately, in all transparency, the funding formula did not take that into consideration. And so that's an area that the committee is revisiting, recognizing that there are some counties that have policies that do not allow early discharge at all. So you have some counties that are, if someone has 1 to 5 years, they're gonna be on for that entire 5 years. You have some counties that, want, or mandate that an individual stays on supervision at least half of the time. The Department of Corrections requires at least 1 year for every 5 years, unless it's a person offense, then it's 2 years for every 5 years, and that's only if they've completed all of the court's requirements, expectations, no violations, and then they've had a period of maintenance. And so again, Clay County definitely aligned with dosage. And so I'm assuming that in the future, when the funding formula is updated to recognize that, that Clay County would see additional dollars within the budget. That is a quick recap. Questions?
Commissioner Gamble.
I don't have a question. My only concern here is the request as it's being stated here. It's asking to adopt the Clay County Comprehensive Plan. Our comprehensive plan goes far beyond
Well-
this particular one. So I'm concerned that the way,
Memo is a mix of the next agenda item.
yeah. So I think, and I saw in statute that we have to develop a comprehensive plan, but I think we need to be careful in what we're referring it to, because our overall comprehensive plan, and right off the website, it states, the plan provides for the policy standards and principles to guide development of cities and rural areas in logically efficient manner. This has got nothing to do with that. You know, but so from the DOC's perspective, we need to have this comprehensive plan. But what we call it, you know, within county, I think we need to be careful what we're referring it to it as,
Sure, I would agree.
so.
Are we able to achieve that today if
Sure,
we
I guess
approve-
if we just want to,
I think we just have to be clear that it's the
wordsmith
comprehensive
it.
plan as it relates to probation. Correct?
I don't know.
Yes. 2024 comprehensive plan for,
Should we say field services? We are known as field services for the Department of Corrections.
Ryan, what was your comment?
Gonna say Department of Corrections, just as a simplicity piece. I mean, I know that's maybe over.
That's what I was wondering, if we couldn't just call it the Clay County Comprehensive Plan for correction, for.
Department DOC.
I think that,
That works on our end.
to me, that would clarify, wouldn't it? Ryan would,
You want to,
I saw
Make
Matt
that-
was here earlier too.
I think Matt was asking about that as well, because it's confusing, because we are working on the Clay County Comprehensive
Yeah.
Plan as it
so
relates
that's
to
a-
planning. and
That's a
zoning.
much broader document than what you're asking for.
Mr. Campbell, would you like to put it in a?
Yeah, I would move to approve the 2024 Clay County Comprehensive Plan for Minnesota Department of Corrections.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I just want to point out, and I am grateful for this, Chanel, the last few years on this legislation have been very, there's been a roller coaster ride, and there's been some pretty good disappointments. And I think we're moving forward in a very productive manner, and you have us set up for a win on this. So I'm grateful for that.
Yes, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. It's good to meet you, Dale.
Janelle, you still having that meeting at 12 today? Yes. That's still on, okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Rhonda Porter, Social Services Director.
I was waiting to be called.
Is that retirement smile that
I
we
know.
see?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Morning.
Okay, we are here this morning to request replacement of a child protection assessment worker in our child protection division. This resignation came in last week, although we have been expecting it. This gentleman's last day will be May 17th, and so we're requesting approval to replace that position.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just asking if the motion would include backfill
Yes,
needed.
please, that would, yeah.
With backfill.
What's that for?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Unfortunately, backfill in our child protection unit typically doesn't apply, but you never know, so thank you. All right, should we move on to this?
Yes,
Okay,
next,
so we are also here this morning regarding April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy, and we have a proclamation and a little bit of a family story to share.
Good morning, and thank you. In recognition of Child Abuse Prevention Month, we would like to share a story of a family who reached out to us after their case had closed with us with an exciting update. In December of 2023, this family was nominated for the Head Start Heroes Award and were one of 4 families in the whole state of Minnesota chosen for this award out of 59 submissions. With the family's permission, they agreed to let us share their story, which was attached with the award. In September of 2022, our lives changed forever. CPS had gotten involved, and we had to give our then almost one-year-old child over to the custody of Child Protection. We had been on a long road of addiction and had recently become homeless in Moorhead. We lived a life of only knowing how to steal, rob, sell drugs, manipulate, and live in poverty. My significant other and I quickly enrolled ourselves in inpatient treatment in Minneapolis, Minnesota at separate treatment facilities, while my parents and my partner's parents rotating weeks taking care of our one-year-old child. We scraped up our last $100 and threw what little we owned into a storage unit. Child Protection gave us 11 months to complete treatment recommendations, find a place to live, and full-time jobs with the risk of permanently losing custody of our child if these were not completed in their time frame. We both were ready to leave the lifestyle of addiction and started the process of recovery and healing. For the first time in years, we chose to fight our addiction and take a serious look at our lives, ourselves, and not take the easy way out as we were accustomed to doing in life. Going into treatment, we had no idea what the future held for our family and for us individually. For the first time in our lives, my partner and I finally took life seriously and trusted the process. During our time in treatment, we found out we were approved for housing in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, as we knew we could no longer go back to the town we had always used in. We knew we had to start a new life in a new town. After 6 months of inpatient treatment, we were able to move into our new home and receive temporary custody back of our child. We quickly found full-time jobs and attended local AA and NA meetings. We were still required to complete random drug screens and visits from Child Protection. We were blessed with programs like Furniture Mission of the Red River Valley that furnished our home with a couch, a kitchen table, chairs, a bed, and dressers. We were also approved for a scholarship to pay for daycare for our child until she started kindergarten. Head Start Home Base started coming into our home along with going to their weekly play groups at their facility in Detroit Lakes. Our worker from Head Start provided us with so many resources and tools in parenting, along with endless events and programs to participate in. We were able to learn how to enjoy the simple things in life, like going to the beach and attending town events like parades, fairs, and even the circus. We never before were able to enjoy recreational activities, as our lives were always surrounded by poor choices and struggles. Words can't explain being able to watch our child grow every day and hear their laugh and watch their smile as they had healthy parents. We gained full custody back of our child in September of 2023. A few other accomplishments we were able to achieve in 2023 were regaining our driver's license, along with each having a vehicle. We are now 1 year and 5 months sober and so proud with how far we have come and how much we have accomplished. We continue to strive to be better as individuals and as a family. We have the best relationships with our parents and other family members that we probably ever had before. I recently enrolled in the Minnesota University online to pursue a career as an addiction counselor, licensed alcohol and drug counselor. My significant other plans to attend barber school in a year and pursue a career in the barber industry. We are so grateful and proud for how far we have come and everyone who has touched our lives since that day in September of 2022. Child Protection was a blessing in disguise, and we hope to inspire other addicts who want to make the same life changes themselves. We truly appreciate this family sharing their story. So in honor of April being Child Abuse Prevention Month, we would like the board to adopt the proclamation before them.
Those stories, haven't spent most of my career dealing with people who have an addiction issue, and being one of the consequences that they suffer when they got in the realm of law enforcement. Another issue that's very difficult is when you have to take their children away. But as we know, hitting rock bottom, it can be a real good motivator. And one thing that really strikes me, and when we look at ourselves as a community, when we take people who suffer from addiction out of a community, no matter how hard they try, it's that much more difficult when they come back to the environment that they used in. And on parole, that's always been an issue in my mind too. And it's interesting to hear that. We'll just take a minute and I'll read the proclamation. Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas our children are our most valuable resource and will shape the future of Minnesota and Clay County. Whereas in the year 2023, Clay County Social Services completed 294 assessments and investigations of families and licensed facilities, assessed 339 children for reports of alleged child abuse or child neglect, provided 85 families with child protection, child welfare case management services, and provided care and services for 185 children in out-of-home placements. Whereas child abuse is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community and can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that may cause lifelong consequences for victims of abuse. Whereas effective child abuse prevention succeeds because of meaningful and trusting partnerships created between parents, practitioners, schools, faith communities, healthcare organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Whereas family-serving, youth-focused prevention programs offer positive alternatives for young people, encourage parents and youth to develop strong ties to their communities, as well as provide protective factors that reduce or eliminate risks of promoting social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. Whereas we acknowledge we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to the promotion of children and families' social and emotional well-being in safe, stable, nurturing environments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Clay County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Clay County, and call upon all citizens, community agencies, religious organizations, medical facilities, and businesses to increase their participation in efforts to prevent child abuse and neglect, thereby strengthening the communities in which we live. Approved this day.
Move the proclamation.
Second the motion?
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Thank you, and thank you, Amy, for your presentation. That was very compelling.
Mr. Chair, if I may, sorry. One, I just want to thank you for bringing that story forward. The courage in which it takes to verbalize that, particularly reaching out to an agency, which initially was really hard to have contact with. I just want to thank the family for sharing that. But also through that story, found it really heartwarming to hear of all of the different touch points, if you will, of helping a family to get back on track, the agencies that we work with, the staff departments. I heard over the weekend a quote that really hit me in regards to second chances, and it talked about how change won't happen until the pain to remain the same is greater than the pain it takes to change. And it really spoke to me, and it spoke to the journey that so many people that we work with every day really are on that journey for. And we talk about, is it worth it? Is the pain and the work that we all do worth it? And the difficult discussions about budgets and programs and all of it. And when you hear how monumental a change the work that you do makes for just a family, it certainly is worth it. So thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Amy. Rhonda, you're bringing more of your team up here, Holly and Jessica. And this will be annual department update, social services, home and community-based, and disability and licensing division. Welcome, ladies.
See if I can get this going here. That's good, okay. I think I got it. All right. Yes, we were dividing up our divisions this year, so a couple weeks ago, you heard from our Child Protection Division and our Behavioral Health Division. This week, you'll hear from Holly and Jessica on licensing and disability services. And I believe next Tuesday, we will have our Financial Services and our Child Support Division. So I'm going to turn it over to these ladies. And I'll run the slideshow.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. As you know, my name is Jessica Mickelson. I'm going to start off with our updates from 2023 for our licensing department. So the program area that probably had the most significant changes in 2023 was our adult foster care program area, so I thought I would start there. We have one licensor for adult foster care. Her name is Fran Davenport. She licenses 67 family adult foster care homes, so that equates to 124 beds, and we currently have 16 openings in our AFC licensed homes. During 2023, 7 of our AFC licenses were revoked due to non-compliance issues, and we have an additional 4 that are currently operating under appeal of their license being revoked. 4 licenses were closed due to inactivity or voluntary request from the license holder, so such as they retired, moved out of county, things like that. Fran issued 4 new family adult foster care homes in 2023. Each of these new homes was identified for a specific service recipient, so a member of a home and community-based waiver recipient was in need of adult foster care licensing, and so a provider was selected specific to that person, and a site was developed for that person. Fran also licenses, with support from our family child care licensors, 126 adult and child corporate foster care homes. So our corporate sites total 332 beds throughout the county. 3 new corporate sites were opened in 2023. So this is kind of where the significant change occurred in 2023. So under the direction of the Department of Human Services, we imposed changes to our licensing application process for AFC homes. All inquiries are put on a wait list to apply until there is an identified service recipient for that home. So this allows this allows for a more person-centered approach to licensing the homes, and service recipients are more involved in identifying which homes they are ultimately placed in or move into. This also helps us reduce or control out-of-county placements. As you are all probably well aware, Clay County is the 16th largest county in the state, but we have the 4th most adult foster care homes. So the ratio is quite off. So we have quite a bit more AFC beds than what we need for our own service recipients. So we are focusing on meeting the needs of Clay County service recipients at this time. This also allows our licensing agent to better vet potential providers and match needs with the provider abilities, and will hopefully reduce compliance issues that have led to the revocations that we've been dealing with over the past couple of years. And just for example, so since we initiated this inquiry waitlist, so in 1 year, we had 104 people reach out who would like to open an AFC license home in Clay County, and we just do not have the need for it. If we didn't have 16 open beds, we'd probably open that wait list up a little bit more, but with 16 openings and all of those providers are actively seeking placement, there just isn't a need at this time.
Got to ask a question. The licenses are revoked. Does that have anything to do with non-residents of the owner? I mean,
Yeah, typically in most of those situations, I believe that the license holder was not living at the site.
okay, that had apparently been a problem that we've addressed.
Yes, yep. So that's one issue. And then the secondary issue that we've really come across is that they're not the primary caregiver. And so that also can lead to a license being revoked.
Okay.
So for adult foster care, they have to live at the home and be the primary provider of care.
Otherwise, they can go for a corporate license and meet the requirements there.
Well, there is a moratorium on corporate beds. We were fortunate, or we've been able to issue some corporate beds this past year, but prior to 2023, I don't think we had issued any in a long time. And really what that is it's other corporate beds that have been turned over, and so we kind of bank those beds and hold on to them for future use. DHS really kind of oversees that very closely, and if we have any corporate sites give up one of their beds, we have 1 year to repurpose it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, so when you said the moratorium, is that done by Clay County, or is that done by DHS?
That's a DHS requirement, yeah. All right, my next program area is child foster care. So we have 2 licensors in this program area. Gail Burnside does the licensing activities for non-relative families, and Alex Ishag, who is actually in Amy's department, but she works very closely with my staff as well, does the relative licensing for child foster care. So in 2023, our average was about 47 CFC homes. 31 of them are non-relative, and we have 12 in application, and 16 of the 47 are relative homes. And again, we have 12 in application for that area as well. We are down 11 licensed homes from 2022, but most of those that closed were relative homes, and so either the child was adopted by the family, the child was reunified with their biological family. We did have a couple non-relative homes that moved out of county but continued to provide foster care in another county in the state of Minnesota. And then we had 1 retirement as well. So in addition to their licensing activities, Gail assists child protection with all placements. So when a child enters the child protection system, the CP worker will work very closely with Gail, who is very familiar with the licensed providers and their availability, their openings. And so Gail really kind of spearheads finding our placements. And then Alex Ishag does the adoptions for Clay County. And then finally with licensing, family child care, we have 2 licensors in this area, Karen Helm and Julie Clear. And as I mentioned, they also support Fran Davenport with the corporate licensing activities. So in 2023, we averaged 133 family child care homes. We have 13 applications in process, so we hope to get all of those up and running quickly. This is down an average from 6 last year. And those 6 closed. There was a couple of retirements. 1 moved to a change of careers. 1 opened a center, and then another one was revoked. So, and then as I mentioned, they also assist with corporate sites. And then just I just listed a few of our licensing recruitment activities over the course of 2023. So we developed additional marketing materials, attended various community events. We are still focusing on our ARPA initiatives, such as incentives to current providers who refer someone who obtains a child care license or foster care. We developed a series of promotional videos that will be released pretty soon. And we attended the New American Networking Conference and various other conferences and community events. And just a FYI, as you're all aware, my licensing unit was awarded $81,000 in ARPA funds in 2022, and we are currently carrying a balance of $30,400 in that area. So we still have quite a bit of those funds remaining. And then to go on to the other half of my division, so the disability services. So I supervise our adult and disability intake staff. So we have 1.5 staff that provide adult intake. Miriam Danielson is our full-time intake worker, and Kylie Kolstad is the part-time worker. So intake coverage is provided through my unit to all 3 adult units. So behavioral health, who you heard from last week,
home and community-based services, which is Holly's unit, and then licensing and disability. So this requires the workers to have a vast understanding of county services, including in-choices, civil commitments, MARC reports, waiver programs, public health programs, et cetera. So you can see there kind of the number of intakes that were completed over the course of the past 3 years. So it really does, we continue to see growth in this area. Adding the .5 position in 2022 allowed us to eliminate the backup rotation that was previously provided, and really improved our response time. So we average 5 intakes a day, which is quite a bit. So that's people calling, walk-ins, and can be very intensive requests that are asked from our workers. So Miriam has informed me that she'll be retiring after 31 years of service to Clay County, so at the end of this year. So I'll be coming back to the board at some point to request that replacement, so.
That's a pretty demanding position.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, when you start looking at succession planning and stuff like that, do we have somebody in mind there that can fill that role?
I'm very fortunate I feel very fortunate that we have Kylie, who has been able to kind of step in and get a lot of this training from Miriam. So she's got that, knowledge base down to support whoever the new worker is. I do not think that Kylie would be interested in solely doing intake, but I have not heard from anybody else. So it hasn't officially been announced because, like I said, she's not retiring until the end of the year, but she did tell me I could share that with the board, so.
But to take those initial calls and then to be able to gather enough information to send them in the right direction is pretty important.
It's very important. Yes, it's
Rhonda, do you have
Position.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Campbell, Mr. Chair. It is absolutely one of the most critical spots in our department, just like our office support, the first people you see when you come in. But as Jessica said, the vast array of knowledge that Miriam has built up over her 31 years is going to be difficult to replace. We have staff within our agency that have that vast knowledge as well, and so I'm certainly hopeful that we would have internal interest that would carry into that position. I anticipate that we will. The one thing that's a little different with intake is it is primarily in the office. You're not going out on home visits, and sometimes that can be attractive to staff that maybe want to look at a little different path for social services. So I'm really hopeful that we have some internal interest, but it is a very challenging and critical position for our department.
Thank you.
And then special needs basic care is another program area that I supervise. We have 2 care coordinators, Natalie Feeland and Amber Carroll is our variable hour care coordinator. So care coordination is provided to SNBC members, so special needs basic care members, to assist them with accessing and navigating the healthcare system and support services, and that is provided through our contract that we have with UCare. So you can see the growth in this program area. Obviously, 2023 was rather a shocking increase, which led to this board approving that variable hour position to be made full-time. So Amber did accept the full-time position. So in a couple of weeks, she'll be transitioning from that variable hour to full-time. And then the last program area that I supervise is MinChoices. So MinChoices is a web-based tool that we use to create person-centered assessments and support plans. So this helps us determine eligibility for people with long-term or chronic care needs. So it helps us determine their program eligibility for services. So I supervise 2 initial assessors, or I'm sorry, 2.5. So Shannon Swenson, Heidi Dresser, and then Kylie Kolstad. So Kylie does part intake, and then the other half of her time is spent doing initial assessments. And then I have 3 reassessors, Sheila Madsen, Mary Koskanimi, and Tracy London. And really, the difference is an initial assessment is for someone just reaching out. So they've contacted intake, a need was identified that's not being met, and they're looking for, accessing one of our program areas. And so the initial assessor's job is to kind of work very closely and pretty intensely with that person to determine their eligibility. And then the reassessors, if we find that somebody is eligible, they are required to have an annual reassessment so that we're continuously looking and ensuring that they continue to meet the eligibility requirements. So in April of 2023, DHS launched a new version of MnChoices called MnChoices Revision. So we will be fully utilizing this new online tool, hopefully by June, potentially sooner, where there was a lot of issues with the tool when it initially launched, but the state has been working pretty closely with the developer to get those resolved. So we're able to use it a little bit more. And then again, I just have kind of some numbers here so you can see the program growth in MnChoices. So in 2021, we completed 571 initial assessments. In 2022, 583. And then in 2023, that jumped up to 614. In 2022, I started tracking kind of the primary need of the individual requesting services for initial assessments. So I won't go through the 2022 data, but in 2023, of the 614 requests for MnChoices assessments that we received, 164 of those were due to the individual having primarily an assessed need in mental health. 32 were for chemical health. 125, which I thought was a very large number, were due to the individual having a developmental disability. 7 were COVID-related, and then 27 required an interpreter. I did not add this, and I should have, but 104 of those assessments in 2023 were due to the person aging. So we do work very closely with our aging population as well in social services. So, and then just our reassessment data. So you can see it, we continue to put more people on services, which then requires more assessments on an annual basis. So, and that was all that I had. Any questions?
Questions? I'll make one comment. Since coming on the board, and I worked here for 12 years, I had no idea the depth and the breadth of the services that we provide through your office, Rhonda, to the citizens of Clay County. And it's just been really impressive. And I'm not going to keep eulogizing you. I'm sure you're tired of that. But we are so grateful that you've left the pool of talent in this organization that you have, and you've encouraged people to learn and to be ready to take leadership positions. And I am very confident that that's going to continue long after you're gone. But you've done some things to really set us all up for success and to address the needs of some of the most vulnerable people in our society. We need to keep getting better at it because there seem to be more issues coming, particularly on our kids. And between this and West Central and some of the things, I think Clay County really has demonstrated a commitment to try and help people, not just when they're helping them in success, when they're already successful, but helping people get their lives back on track. So your folks are very, very good at that, and this board is very aware of that.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I often feel so lucky over my whole career, the staff that we've had and the passion and the impact that they've made to the folks that we serve. And when I listen to these presentations, I'm just reminded of that all over again because we touch a lot of lives, that's for sure. when a family enters our initial process through Jessica's unit, oftentimes a number of those folks that are determined eligible for services come over to Holly's unit. So Holly's going to talk a little bit now about what happens when her workers receive those referrals.
Thank you, Rhonda. Good morning.
Thank you.
As you guys all know, I'm Holly Wanner, and I supervise our home and community-based Rural 185 division. And so just kind of an update from last year. I have 16 staff in my unit, 14 of which are case managers. And my case managers provide case management services to people and their families, focusing on a person-centered planning, referrals, support planning, coordination, and advocacy related to either their waiver services or other community resources. My staff work with people of all ages, so birth through the end of life. And primarily their caseload does involve people who are on a Medicaid disability waiver, but they do also work with folks who what we call Rural 185 case management or developmental disabilities case management. And then as you'll recall, in the last year and a half, we did add 2 case managers. So we were at 12, and that brought it up to 14. In November of 2022, I had a case manager join us, and then again in January of 2023. And that was really to help address caseload sizes and workload. In addition to my 14 case managers, we have 2 case aides, and they do amazing work for my case managers as well as some of Jessica's staff. They assist with the administrative activities related to our waiver and Rural 185 case management services. And I didn't add this, but they do assist Jessica's staff with their Min Choices assessment and some SMBC care coordination work. The bulk of the people that we serve are on a disability waiver program, which is Medicaid funded, and this is a billable service that my case managers and case aides provide, so we're generating revenue from Medicaid for the services that we provide. But in order to be on a disability waiver, the person needs to be a Minnesota resident, on Minnesota Medicaid, have a disability, and be what is considered certified disabled. They have to have a need for services as an alternative to living in an institution. And when I say an institution, I'm talking about a nursing home, a hospital, that type of a setting. And then they also have to meet additional waiver criteria based on the type of waiver or service that they're receiving from the county. Minnesota Disability Waiver funds services to help people live as independently as possible in the community and promote optimal health, independence, safety, and community integration. So really the goal is to keep people living in their home in our community rather than an institution. There are 4 disability waivers. The first one being the brain injury waiver, and this focuses on people with a diagnosis of a brain injury who require level of care provided in a specialized nursing facility or neurobehavioral hospital. Currently, we have 5 people on this waiver type. Last year at this time, we had 6. The next waiver is our Community Alternative Care, or CAC waiver. This waiver is for people who are chronically ill or medically fragile and require the level provided in a hospital. So this is for individuals who are pretty medically fragile and have high medical needs. We do work closely with the public health nurses on this particular waiver. In fact, the public health nurses are the primary case manager, and then my staff are a secondary worker to assist them. Last year we had 14 individuals on the CAC waiver. This year we have 8, so a bit of a decrease. The next waiver is our Community Access for Disability Inclusion, or our CADI waiver. This is by far our largest waiver program. This is for people with disabilities who require the level of care provided in a nursing home. This year we have 571 people on this waiver as compared to 549 from last year, so an increase in that area. And then lastly is our developmental disabilities waiver, and this is for people with a diagnosis of a developmental disability or a related condition who require the level of care provided in an intermediate care facility for people with developmental disabilities. And so this year we have just 2 less than last year at 204, where last year we were at 206. In addition to our Medicaid waiver programs, the other program that my staff provide case management under is called Rule 185, or Developmental Disabilities Case Management. In this program area, we did see quite an increase from last year. Currently, we have 140 people on this program, whereas last year it was 97, and that kind of speaks to what Jessica had mentioned when she was talking about initial assessments and the increase in referrals for people with developmental disabilities. So this program area is county funded, and it serves people with a developmental disability or related condition. Under this program, some folks access different services such as a family support grant, semi-independent living skills, or what's called county-funded day training and habilitation. So not everybody receives a separate service. They might just be receiving the case management, but a few folks do receive some other services in addition to the case management. And then lastly, we've got relocation service coordination in a nursing home for people under the age of 65. And so this is a Medicaid-funded case management service for people who are in an eligible institution. Generally, it's a nursing home, and they're wanting to access services and supports to relocate back into the community, primarily in their home. So there was a bit of an increase this last year in the number of referrals. So we have 15 people on this program right now, where last year we had 5. Generally, the case manager works with the person to set up services so they can safely return to their home in the community. And then with that, that typically means they're going on a Medicaid waiver program, so probably the CADI waiver to help fund those supports so they can live in their home rather than in an institution. Let's see, caseload sizes. So just kind of for your reference, we see caseload sizes continuing to kind of inch up from year to year. Last year, we had an average caseload size of about 62. That was with 3 additional staff over the course of the years. And now we're at 65. So even though we've added 2 staff in a year and a half, we are still seeing those numbers creep up a little bit. Some of our caseload, I'd say the complexity of the population we serve continues to increase. The needs of folks, as well as our the community's providers in the community. The challenge with the staffing shortages in the workforce does bring challenges to serving people in their home and meeting their needs. So we work closely with providers to be creative in how can we do that, as well as the state of Minnesota, and developing appropriate programming and resources to meet people's needs in their home. Some division updates for our program area. So as of last November 2023, the federal peace and emergency ended, and this allowed our case managers to do their required face-to-face visits virtually, whereas now with that ending, they need to complete all of their required face-to-face visits in person. So that travel time will certainly impact their workload and the amount of time it takes to complete that requirement. As Jessica mentioned, with MnChoice's revision that launched a year ago in April of 2023, my case managers complete the support plan in that tool. So again, trying to work through that learning curve and working with DHS to ensure that's a program that meets the needs of our folks, as well as being efficient for our case managers. Also, in 2023, the legislation, there was some language changes regarding the number of hours a disability case manager needs to complete for training. So previously, they were required to complete 10 hours annually of education and training that was disability related. That is now bumped up to 20. So those extra 10 hours will also impact just availability for services and the time that they have. And then lastly, the state of Minnesota is an employment first state, which Essentially, that means that all disability case managers are approaching each person's situation with the idea that this person can work and wants to work. And so we are focusing on offering competitive integrated employment options to all people that we serve and helping set up services to help that person meet that need if they have a desire to work a competitive employment. That's it. All right, thank you. Any questions for me?
Excuse me. When you evaluate people that they get involved for, that we're gonna treat them or help them with their benefits and stuff like that, I mean, is there anybody that checks these cases? I mean, are you the final decision makers? I mean, in all your different departments around, are they the final decision makers, or are they overlooked by anybody else then, or? I mean, when you make a decision that someone's gonna get benefits, that's the final decision then, huh?
Yeah, so Jessica's staff do the Min Choices assessment initially, and then each year to determine if the person's still eligible for the Medicaid waiver program that my staff monitor and administer. As a part of that program, they are required to be on Medicaid. So that is an additional requirement that they work with our income maintenance unit on, ensuring that they still meet those eligibility requirements for Minnesota Medicaid.
Yeah, Commissioner Gross, Mr. Chair, so when we talk about benefits in the realm of these services, it's really that Medicaid benefit set. So next week, we'll be talking about some of the other state and federal public assistance benefits. And for those programs, there are different time periods for reviewing eligibility and different documentation and systems we use to determine eligibility. So you'll hear a little bit about that next week. But for these programs, Medicaid is the public program that we're authorizing services under, if that makes sense.
So Medicaid doesn't check on, there's no checking after you approve somebody. Medicaid doesn't check that or anything like that.
We do have an internal review team, so we have a multidisciplinary team that meets weekly to review all cases or assessments prior to approving anybody for services. But the requirements are very clear of what they must meet.
Okay.
And so we do try to look at all additional options. But if their needs cannot be met without waivered funded services while remaining in the community, then we would approve the person for a program. We do also go through a lead agency review, so we are audited, but they don't really necessarily look at who we're approving for eligibility during that. But some of the systems that we utilize to approve services, so the MMIS system, which is where service agreements are entered, it wouldn't approve our service agreement had the person not met all of the requirements. So we have to put in a screening document. So that's kind of one of the checks and balances that the state has. It's just the actual system that we utilize to enter services. It wouldn't approve without minimum requirements being met.
Thank you for that information. I was just wondering whether there's anybody that checks us out to see whether we're doing our job properly and stuff like that. So, thank you for your help.
Any other questions? Frank? Or Paul, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, Jessica, I could ask this question 10 minutes ago, but anyway, I was kind of caught by one of your first comments, and it was about adult foster care, 16th county, fourth in with most foster care homes. And I'm curious, what creates that trend?
It's really word of mouth. I think foster care homes were able to go through the licensing process relatively smoothly with our previous licensor who did that. And so it kind of became a business that people in our community became aware of as an opportunity. And I really think it kind of spread through word of mouth and neighbors telling neighbors. And, I'm sure, there are some organizations for our foster care providers. So I guess I,
Okay. Well, that's totally an answer I wasn't expecting. It's nice to hear it's the solution, right? Rather than that the need is greater than wings.
right, that is the one program area for licensing that we do not have a need for growth
Yeah.
in, to be honest.
Well,
So-
thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions for any of the folks presenting? Thank you, great report. We're looking forward next week. It's informative every time you come up here with this crew.
Thank you.
Next up, we've got Matt Jacobson, Director of the Planning and Zoning, and he's going to request approval of Resolution 2024-14 to allow the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources to accept a gift of land for the Scientific and Natural Areas Program. Matt?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So here to basically provide some information, request a resolution. A landowner in Clay County has worked with the DNR and would like to donate 200 acres of his property to the DNR in memory of his late wife, Beva Paulson. And I do have a Bill Blequin. He's with the DNR and he is on the line. I think he can provide some more information on this. A lot of this was done by Shelley Hedke. She was with the DNR. She actually retired last Monday. And so this was kind of the last thing that she did. So, Bill, can you hear us all right?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay,
So I'll turn it over to Bill.
great. Thank you. Yes, as Matt said, I'm Bill Blequin. I am the statewide acquisition coordinator for the Scientific and Natural Area Program in the DNR. I want to thank the board for letting me present remotely. As was already mentioned, Shelley Hedke just retired last week. She would normally be there in person to make this presentation. And so I'll be stepping in for her this morning. So I have a brief presentation that I would like to make here, and I will share it. Let's see, there we go. So I will minimize this. So as has been brought up, this is an approximately 200 acre, our final survey hasn't come in yet, but we're thinking it's about 196 acres right now, donation of mixed habitat land on the eastern border of Clay County. And what I'd like to just briefly go over is provide some information about the site location and its context, its ecological significance, what the uses would be for the public, how they could enjoy this scientific and natural area, and explain how this meets our goals within our program, that we have some pretty specific goals in order to enroll a site, and also to just briefly go over the payment in lieu of taxes that Clay County would be receiving. So here's a map of Clay County. The Paulson site, as you can see, is over here right on the edge of the county with Becker County. As you all very well know, we think Clay County is a really an interesting county in a lot of ways, in that there's a gradient of plant communities in the Red River Valley. You've got the wet prairies. You go into the glacial beach ridges as you're heading east. And then you get into the dry prairies. You get into oak savanna and oak forest as you start heading east. And then there's just a little bit of maple basswood forest, which represents a very rich, more moisture-loving type of forest that's common in Minnesota and just comes into the eastern part of Clay County. So we feel this site has some really interesting significance for our program. This is an aerial photo of the site, and you can see the boundaries here in red, this being Nest Lake up here, and then the black line being the border with Becker County. As you can see, it's a mosaic of wetlands, of fields, of oak forest, maple forest, and small lakes. And these are some of the mapped native plant communities. They haven't been fully mapped yet, but of course we'll get more detailed information should this become an SNA. But as you can see, there's a good representation of native plant communities that we see across Clay County that are included within this site, and that's why we're very excited about it. More detailed information for anyone who would be interested. These are from our native plant community guides that the DNR publishes for the state. And we just provide a detailed listing of the key plant materials that, key plants, trees, shrubs, and wildflowers that you would see, this being a photo from the site. Most of the photos in this presentation, except for one, are from the Paulson site. What I'd like to mention, you'll see this map here, and I'm going to zoom in, is that I've mentioned the maple basswood forest, and it just barely comes into Clay County. This map shows the range of the southern Minnesota southern maple basswood forest. The potential range is in gray. The documented sites we have, some of them are these red dots. And as you can see, we really don't have anything up here. And so this would be a very nice site to add because it would really be at the northwestern fringe of where this particular type of forest occurs within Minnesota. So we are very interested in this. This is for a photo from the site, shows the mix of wetland and meadow and forest in the background. I just included this photo to show you what a mature sugar maple basswood forest looks like. This is from central Minnesota with the trillium and the wildflowers that they're known for. There are a couple species of interest that have been reported within the area of the Paulson site. Rusty patch bumblebee and woodland bluegrass are two that stand out. And typically, people wonder, well, what can you do on an SNA? And these are pretty much our standard uses that we that occur that we let the public engage in. Nature observation, education, such as school field trips. Our SNAs are popular to conduct academic research on, photography, and then we also allow hiking, cross-country skiing, and snowshoeing as they're incidental to the nature study activities too. This, at the request of the Paulson family, there would be no hunting generally, as there typically aren't on most of our SNAs, but we may have special management hunts to manage deer populations, but those would occur infrequently. This I mentioned in the beginning, this site does meet specific goals that the DNR has for acquiring lands. You may have heard of Strategic Land Asset Management Program within the DNR. And that is something that's been developed in response to working with local governments to make sure that, sites that we acquire do meet goals, do meet criteria that make them worthy of protection. Sometimes SLAM looks at, balancing what we acquire, what we divest. And in this case, the goals that were met were, this is within a county with less than 5% public land. It does protect significant natural resources, such as the maple basswood forest type that I mentioned. It does protect water resources and promotes landscape resiliency and carbon sequestration. The resiliency part of it comes from protecting a variety of different native plant communities or biomes, as we have seen on this site. That does provide a bit of ecological protection. And then the last major item I'd like to present is the payment in lieu of taxes, or PILT payment. Just kind of jumping right to the outcome. that Clay County would receive an annual PILT payment at this point based on the valuation of the property of $2,853.75. So with that, as we mentioned at the beginning of this item, we are requesting of the county board a resolution of approval for the donation acquisition of the Beva Paulson Hardwood Forest property to add to the Scientific and Natural Area Program. Our next steps, should the county board approve this, would be we would be getting close to closing. We would just be performing our title review and other due diligence, and then we would be closing. And then designation comes some point after that. So I'm available for any questions or comments, and I'd like to thank you for your time and your consideration.
Any questions? Commissioner Campbell?
Yeah, thank you. On the PILT payment, the tax assessments that were currently out there, it's showing a total of $2,224. Is that all government entities, or is that just the counties? In other words, does that include what would be township and school district taxes as well?
That's a good question. I'm going to presume yes, because I know in the past it has been a kind of collective taxes, but this would be what would go to the county, and then if it's distributed through the county to school issues or the township, yes, I would believe it would come out of this payment.
Okay. I'm assuming that Lori must do some sort of a distribution of that. Or Matt, do you know by chance, or?
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Campbell, I'm just looking that up right now. I did share this with our auditor and assessor as well, just for any comments, and didn't receive any.
I guess I've never asked that question before, but it just came to my mind that I just, it seems to me that, those other agencies also are dependent on those funds. I guess I'm just hopeful that would be the full amount that would, and it does look like it exceeds what would be the full amount that we would get in taxes, so that would be my only concern, and otherwise I think this is.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, just looking at their 2024 statement, it would be inclusive of those taxes as well.
Very good, thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Right?
Just looking at the overhead, I mean, it looks like it almost divides that forest right in half, or area is not really a forest, whatever you want to call that. I mean, interesting to me, like if you step over that line and you have certain precautions and stuff like that, what you can do and what you can't do in that land. And I don't know, is there any steps to increase this area, or I guess we got no control of that, I guess, but
So,
it just seems weird that if you just step 1 foot over, you got different requirements on that land.
yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, most of this area is actually, we do have this resource protection biological zoning district, and most of this area and the surrounding properties would have that zoning on it. Really doesn't offer a lot of protections. It offers protections from development, with the exception of any ag development that would occur. I don't think that this is really an area where you'd see any agricultural development, but that zoning district does offer some additional protections for this property and surrounding properties.
Those same protections being the Becker County adjoining property.
Those protections, Mr. Chair, that's a county level zoning, and Becker County does not have the same similar type of zoning district that we would.
Okay.
Yeah, but Matt, the main difference as I look at it, potentially this parcel though, then would be open to public access rather than the other part would be private.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, Commissioner Krabenhoft, absolutely. So this would be open to public access. We have some other SNAs in our county too that are actually quite popular with the public. They draw in people from all over the state. particularly up in kind of the Felton area. And so, yeah, this would be open to the public for sure, and I'd probably be a draw.
Be a good place to move some butterflies.
Just going to Commissioner Gross's question, so, so everything that would be to the east of that line, that happens to be owned by another private landowner, right? Or for that matter, all around.
Correct.
That could be private landowners, and if they want to allow hunting on that land, they can
Correct.
allow hunting on that land.
Correct.
So I was wondering, you shoot a deer in that land to the east, runs into there, can you get it? Of course, I don't, you're probably
That
not.
might be a question for Bill, like if someone shoots a deer on another property and it goes into the SNA, can they retrieve that
Yes.
deer? I would assume so, but
That's a good question. I think we would too, because the hunting, the deer was shot off site. So if it needs to be retrieved, we would rather have it retrieved. Generally, we wouldn't, we would allow people to retrieve it. I would think for that very reason.
I was just thinking, excuse me, I was just thinking, if you're out there hunting, it's tough to describe where you're at right there, if you're out there in that bunch of trees, where are you at, it's just.
I think the onus is on the hunter, and that's similar to when you're on other parcels that might be.
Got to know where you're at. Yeah.
I would anticipate it's probably going to be posted.
Yes, we post our properties at regular intervals. Typically, it's about a 300-foot spacing between signs, and they're a standard black on kind of a golden yellow sign, so they stand out pretty well. They're small, but they're pretty visible.
Just one last question as I look at these two pages. I'm looking at page 134 and 135. Those are the maps, and primarily the larger body of water. Is that considered like a lake or Matt?
yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, I think that would be classified for the state classification as a natural environment lake.
So does somebody have the ability to fish that?
That is a good question.
And again, I guess if they're, because according to this, the one that shows the boundaries go into the water and the other one that shows it along the shoreline, and what is what? What's,
I think he's got an answer for you.
okay.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Yes, and that is a good question about the property boundary extending across the lake. Typically, this is, I think, a lake that, as was mentioned, is a natural environment lake, is generally open to fishing. Fishing could occur on the lake. The SNA program would prefer, however, to not fish from the shoreline, but if you're out in the lake, you would be able to fish the lake.
Yeah, well, I guess that was my question. Obviously, at the shoreline, that's private property, right? So that would be the state, that would become state property. They have permission to go on there, but I don't know, similar to posting for no hunting, maybe there'd be something. I guess I'm just want to make sure that somebody who's out on the water fishing still has a right to fish on.
Yeah, and, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Campbell, with fishing, my understanding is that, and property lines, really anything below the ordinary high water level would be subject to a different set of regulations and would be generally open to the public for fishing. Maybe one of the reasons why, like when my nephews are fishing and they're throwing their casting under people's docks and then people get mad at them, there's nothing that really can be done about it because they're fishing on public water.
And that's what, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
I do have one.
Go ahead.
Just real quick. So in this development approved today, what's kind of the timeline that they're using for whatever work what projects you're going to have on the land, and more importantly, when might accessibility to this land be?
Accessibility would be from the Township Road here that comes in. I can tell you the name of it if you'd like to know, because I do have the MnDOT map up here. It is, well, it's this Township Road here. It looks like it's signed as County Road 146 coming in along the town, or 60th Avenue South.
Right.
So this would be your public access along that public road there. And let's see. And then your other question would be about planned uses?
Well, just timeline for the public. I didn't know if that happens right away, or
Okay.
you go through a period of things that you want to set up first, or just curious.
Yeah, and that's, that I appreciate this question too. We have no plan, just because it was kind of raised, we have no plans for the property. We would leave the property as is. There might be some minor restoration of prairies or wetlands that would occur in the already open areas. But in terms of when it would be available for public, we hope to close here yet this spring or early summer. And then we have to submit this SNA to the commissioner of the DNR's office. And that goes through that designation order that we submit has to be reviewed by several legal departments within the DNR and then go through the commissioner's office. That takes some time. And now we're moving through a backlog that kind of built up during COVID, and we didn't have staffing. And so it is taking some months. It's hard for me to look at a crystal ball and tell you when the commissioner's office would be able to issue a formal designation, but it probably will be some months. And then that designation is published within the state register too. And theoretically, I mean, that is when the SNA is open to the public. But we probably would post it probably at that time too. And if the public went on it, while we don't encourage it because it's not officially designated yet, these things happen sometimes too. So, that's as best as I could answer your question.
No,
I wish
that's
I
just
could give you a
fine.
more definite time frame.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any motions or further questions?
Mr. Chair, I just have a question for Bill. Just wondering if the DNR ever does like a press release or has some kind of, ceremony kind of opening up the SNA or anything like that, just to let the public know?
Yes. In this case in particular, with it being donated by the Paulson family, we anticipate that there will be a commemorative opening ceremony. I know that the Paulson family has talked about just having some sort of an engraved on-site boulder that would say this is the Beva Paulson Memorial, Beva Paulson Hardwood Forest SNA. And so we are anticipating to have a ceremony. It would be publicized through the SNA program's website and our Facebook page, and certainly any other people, parties, organizations, agencies who would like to provide some publicity for that or the general opening. We certainly encourage that too.
Mr. Chair, I move resolution 2024-14.
And I'll second.
A motion is second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I could have one more final question, I'm sorry. Who owns the land on either side? Paulson own any more land on either side, or? It just seems to be a awkward line going around that parcel there.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Gross, are you looking to the east, west? There's a number of
Any area,
landowners.
East, west.
So to the east would be Minnesota Birch LLC would own about 80 acres. Actually, they own two parcels, so they own closer to 140 acres. Their Minnesota Birch LLC is the property owner entirely on the east side. There's a, Mr. Paulson owns the property to the south. And then Timothy and Jane Nephew own the property to the west.
Thank you.
Okay, call for a break, about 5 minutes. We're back in session and going to committee reports. And we'll start off this week with Jenny.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week I had several days worth of conversations working with legislators and AMC staff on upcoming hearings for bills of items of interest from this board and AMC. Friday, we had a meeting with the ARPA committee. We had a discussion on a proposal for utilizing funds to help with leverage of a grant for border-to-border with Red River Communications. Certainly felt that given how other counties are utilizing additional ARPA funds to help do the same thing, felt it was a good use of funds. There will be a proposal to this board as the board forwarded a support of that proposal next week. Certainly there are some additional funds that are sitting in the ARPA account that will need to be earmarked by the end of the year, and we'll have an additional meeting to discuss that further in the upcoming months.
Can I
Yeah.
jump in on that? Yeah, so we met on that, and, you know, the ARPA committee came up with a dollar amount that we, and again, it's kind of time sensitive in terms of the applicant and when they have to apply for this grant. And you know, so because we didn't have, that meeting was on Friday, we couldn't have it on the agenda today, but we're just kind of hoping to get a consensus here that, in the amount that we're talking about, I think the last one that we did was for 5,000. This one, our committee is recommending 25,000. So I don't know if they're, I think, Steve, I think they were looking for some sort of a
consensus of sorts as they move forward. They've started the process of the application for the border-to-border grant. They've already done some of the initial work in lieu of hopefully the conversations that were going to take place that we're talking about now. And so we've notified them of the discussion of our ARPA committee with the understanding it would have to come through this board. And so their hope would be is that official action wouldn't take place until next week, but if there were any concerns that they'd start maybe having some of those conversations now.
So I guess that's kind of where we left it. We certainly, the committee certainly supports that, and hopefully they can, from a time sensitive standpoint, I hope they can get their application in time with the understanding that would be forthcoming. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, good, important discussion. That was the only item on the agenda for that meeting. Yesterday, I attended we had to meet quickly on the AMC tax forfeiture work group. We had a meeting to discuss the review of the new House amendment policy language. As I think I reported last week, that bill had been pulled from the taxes committee hearing. There were certainly some concerns on making sure that the bills mirrored Senate and House language. This one was to talk not so much on the $109 million settlement to counties, but the language in the bill to fix the system, the reason for it. So we did review the new language. We provided a markup based on what the group's feedback was, and discuss last week's settlement bill hearing, and then what our plan in regards to this upcoming week's Senate and House hearings. You know, there seems to be a little bit of misinformation out there in regards to how funds for the settlement would be utilized. It really, for counties, would result in $109 million worth of an unfunded mandate as we deal with what the Supreme Court decision was. So if you have an opportunity specifically to talk to Representative Joy, as he's a member of the Taxes Committee, it's really important that he hears from us how, I believe the number is about $600,000 for Clay County that we would be on the hook for. Certainly counties were not aware of this issue as it was going on, so we're just doing the best to deal with the situation that was determined upon us yesterday. Then we did have in-person meetings for the substance use facility construction and the DMV facility. Really good updates from Gertz in regards to how construction is continuing. Certainly the rain posed a little bit of a hiccup in that, but did have updates on the masonry, hoping to get that continued. And then, let's see, as they're moving from the exterior to the interior, some of those pieces. There were a couple of pending proposal requests. Hearing was a little difficult on that, so I'm going to have to defer to Commissioner Campbell and Administrator Larson if I'm missing anything in there. But there was some discussion in regards to shower rooms, lighting in the day rooms, and then some additional ligature door hardware, I believe. And then last night I attended a meeting of the Clay County Fair Board and a joint meeting with University of Minnesota Extension staff in regards to how we move forward for our contracted employees and coordination in regards to how the fair event will go. And then certainly as we move past the fair, how we have a dialogue to make sure that we're addressing not only the opportunities, but also the successes. It certainly was brought forward that maybe a subcommittee for that would be the most helpful to make sure there's a continued dialogue on what the services are. So I believe that concludes my reports, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell?
Thank you. April 2nd, we had a Highway Tracking Committee meeting. Several items were brought up. Justin wants to review the access management policy. There appears, the last time that was updated was 2012, and there appears to be some discrepancies between the land development ordinance and policies. So there's an ordinance and there's a policy, and they in some ways they conflict each other. So they're working on the inconsistencies that language has. He also updated us on the diversion 37-foot MOU, and that basically that deals with all of the properties north. You know, we hear so much about the area, the staging area down south, but there's an awful lot of there's still things that need to be done up in the northern area regarding roads and elevating roads so that they meet that 37-foot threshold. So I think he's mentioned that, Brian, I believe your office is also reviewing that MOU, and Clay County will handle the design and the contracts, and it would be reimbursed by the diversion authority. So that process is moving forward, and when that's about ready to come, I think we would have Chris Bockygaard will come before this full board and further explain the final details of the MOU, which they would be looking then for approval. We had some discussion about dust control policy, and there were a couple of modifications that went out there, and basically there were two changes. One of them was a A minimum spray of 300 feet long is required. And again, these dust control, it's where the private residents hire us to put that dust control down for them. And then the other piece of that, and now it's just easier for me to read it, it says Clay County has sole responsibility to maintain the road as the county engineer and his designated representatives see fit. Occasional blading and with motor grader can be done to a treated area on Clay County roads if the treated area becomes rough due to washboards and potholes, etc. This is done to provide a safe, so in other words, even though the private landowner puts on that stuff, we still have the right to maintain that road. Typically, when that's done, if it's done in the right conditions, that will come back anyway. So it'll, as long as it's done when it's wet. Then we had some discussion regarding this greenhouse gas discussion. This goes to, there's some House and Senate files out there that can impact the ability to have projects awarded based on some of this greenhouse gas stuff. So we had asked Justin to check into that to make sure that some of our projects don't get delayed because of that, and he's working on that. Local road improvement application, we were awarded $750,000 for the CASA 1252 proposed realignment, which would have a roundabout. Thank you. And then they were awarded another $535,000 towards that. So that's good news. And I think the overall price tag on that was like proposed early on, was it 1.8 million, Frank? I think it was like 1.8, so a good significant portion of that now is funded through those awards. And future things that we talked about, the 5-year plan, that normally we see that this time of year in April or May. Justin wants to delay that finalization of that until the legislative session is over, because if we're granted that $4.5 million through the legislative process, that would change how our 5-year plan could look. So we're going to just kind of delay that coming up. CASA 1, north of the Broadway Road area up there, going up to 26. That's paving is going to start in May. Holly received a local road improvement grant for $1,416,000 for 15th Street. That's a big deal for them. And then we have 3 motor graders that are due for replacement in 2024. It's kind of a shocking news that we got there. The costs have gone from $319,000 to $513,000. So we're looking at what kind of alternatives we can be looking at in 20. That's a significant increase, So on Thursday, on behalf of the Lakes Country Service Cooperative, I attended the Clay County Collaborative meeting. I'm going to let Commissioner Krabbenhoft report on that. That's his committee. And on, as Commissioner Mojo mentioned, on Friday we had the ARPA committee, and it was basically that one request from Red River Communication for the border-to-border application for the matching fund request. And then yesterday we did have the 2 meetings for the detox facility as well as the DMV. On the DMV, there was really no really changes or anything that's going as scheduled, and it's moving right along. They're doing some thawing on the inside now, so they're probably in May that whole floor will be poured on the inside, and they'll be able to really move efficiently along in that regard. In terms of what on the withdrawal management, what Commissioner Mojo talked about on and the change orders are going to be coming forward next week. And I think we had already talked to you about the pre-approval that Commissioner Mojo and I gave was on the adding those sink intakes, that was a $10,500 addition, but we haven't formally acted on. Darren said we did, but I don't know that we did.
Pretty sure I brought it when Steve was on vacation or something.
Okay, well, maybe, if we haven't, we will next week.
Yeah, I'll double check, but
Okay.
my brain might be going for
Well,
that.
it could be mine too. And then also we talked about some toilet exhaust fan controls for 5,000, window materials, $1,800, and they'll come forward with explanations for those things. And the electrical power adjustments of 3,000. There was a shower room light change that needed to be made of 643, and the biggest one was had to deal with door hardware, and the door hardware in all the day rooms and everything was all appropriate, but as it turned out, they didn't design for the anti ligature door hardware in all of the different bedrooms. And what happens is it's a safety deal where they didn't want to have any mechanism where somebody could maybe put some ropes together and do harm to themselves. But that was a big one. That was, the price tag on that is $21,000. So, but again, they'll come in, and then we did have another one on some bollards that Joe said we wouldn't need in a certain area, and that was a deduction of $2,000. But if all of these things next week, if we approve all of those, our contingency would be at, pardon me, after all of those adjustments, we have a remaining contingency of $204,000 of the 400. So we would have used about 50% of the contingency, and we asked about how long, and they figure they're probably between 60 and 70% complete on the project. So, and they're saying that most of the stuff, those changes have been made, but there's still seems to be a lot of internal things that go on. So that concludes my report.
Can I follow up quick?
Go ahead.
Thank you. With Commissioner Campbell and I serving on the DMV, there's another item that we've talked a lot about that we really do need to continue to advocate for. In regards to the potential for MetroCog or MatBus access and service to that facility, we've advocated for a long time. Specifically now, we'll have the withdrawal management, the DMV, the resource recovery. It really is important that we continue to advocate for there being a bus stop there, and we're really kind of hitting some speed bumps, for lack of a better term, with MetroCog. We did hear from the city yesterday that they're looking for someone from Clay County to serve on the study review committee. We've always maintained that we're open to doing that. I serve as vice chair of MetroCog. Our county engineer, Justin Sorum, serves on the transportation technical committee. We've always been really available for that. So I'll reach out to MetroCog to kind of get that component. But now they're talking about there not being staff trained to do transit route planning. Anyways, it's our responsibility, since it is an area where people will be served that don't necessarily have reliable transportation. It's our due diligence to continue to advocate for why that's an important need. So as you have discussions with the city of Moorhead and folks that are on those regional transportation plan boards, we need to continue to advocate that. I know they're talking about microtransit and on-demand service. I've had smaller conversations with our administrator on what if we phase in a service? Does it sorry. Does it mean that there's only a couple days a week that maybe there would be a service offered to at least advertise for folks that would need to use that facility? Sorry. That there would be something offered. We just need to get creative about how we look at that, because there's lots of folks that use the DMV that don't have a vehicle, that are going to get identification services, those types of things. Commissioner Gross?
And I think the detox center's already working on a bus stop there, aren't they too?
I think as part of our plan, the construction part is we have something where that bus stop would go. We just need the partnership with City Moorhead and Transportation to be able to have the bus come to that location.
And I'm sure if we had a detox center bus stop, that'd be close enough for the DMV.
Yeah, I think the problem is we've not had a ton of support in developing a stop.
I'm sure it'd be, if we had them both together, that'd be a little bit more emphasis on it.
That's the way we've been proposing it.
It's only one.
In need of both. It'd be
Yeah.
one stop for both facilities.
That concludes my report.
Anything else?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm done, yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Gross.
Okay. Tuesday, I attended the highway tracking meeting, which has been covered pretty well. The only other thing on the dust control, I see Justin's already got the letters out to the townships, but the one thing, there is a minimum of 300 feet long, so, I mean, I think they go by the foot as far as how much you pay for, but there is a 300-foot minimum on there, so just for that information. Also, last night, I went out to Cromwell Township and discussed some of what's happening in the county. We talked about dust control, talked about winter maintenances, talked about the new buildings that are going up on 15th Avenue and more at Center Mall. And then after Cromwell Township, I went to Morgan Township. There was more discussion on that. They plan to build a new township hall out there. Well, not on planning, I think they are gonna build a new township hall out there, and it's pretty well gonna get started hopefully this year, because they got a 10-year levy that they're proposing to pay for that. So it's gonna be a big project for them. Other than that, this weekend I had another comment from not a comment, but a concern from a resident out in the Felton area on wolves. He wants to, I don't know whether we have anything to do about wolves or not, but some sort of management program on wolves. He showed me a picture of a wolf right on his property there and stuff, so it's a very big concern on him, on people having small animals around and stuff. Those were my meetings.
Thank you. Commissioner Krappenoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Thursday, I had the Local Advisory Council for Children's Mental Health, our monthly meeting. The main discussion there, have been doing our surveys that for the last maybe 6 weeks, that closed April 1st. And the surveys are in regard to asking people in the professional side of services, how's their access, are there gaps in what we're trying to do collectively, what are the needs, those type things, and also outcomes. And then the second survey has to do with parents or guardians or other people that are involved with children and using the services for children within children's mental health. And out of those two surveys, last year we had about, I think it was right around 80 responses. And this year we've had about 350. So we're getting a lot more data. All this information, kind of they'll massage it and bring it all together so that when that group, that LAC group, comes here to speak in May, which is Mental Health Month, they'll come and give the report to us in May, tidy up the results to give us information back from what they got back from the surveys. Along with my meeting later that afternoon was with the Clay County Collaborative Group. Again, Commissioner Campbell mentioned he was there. Mainly it was to go through what the program does, and the first part of it, and then on to the grants that we will be working with. Last year, there were about 15 people, 15 entities, excuse me, that came forward and received about $323,000 worth of grants throughout Clay County. So it's significant in the use of working in our area schools and other nonprofits to help them with mental health and correctional needs. And then the other thing we did was going through the forms for this year's requests. And we've pretty well got that down, and that will, so we're going to have our next meeting in May, toward I think it's 22nd or 23rd, that these forms will be adopted, and we will move forward to getting the applications for these grants out to our many partners. Monday, last night, I guess, I was at the Buffalo Red Watershed District monthly meeting. I did meet, it was nice to meet the new commissioner from Welcome County, John Brayton, and he has now the spot that Lyle Haviland had had for so many years. Just a few things of note with the district last night that really came to be items in Clay County. Number one was talking about there was an award of $192,000 that would be, will be for the first part of Project 54. So that's our Whiskey Creek that's going to go all the way over, starting around Barnesville and then heading west a little bit, northwest to County Road 21, where we've talked about in the springtime we've had some flood problems, and that whole thing is getting restored. Anyway, the first award and it goes for about, I think, 2.5 miles along the, I call it the Comstock Road, going east-west from Barnesville going west, and that work will start right away. The other one was, we got a bid from Tunsheim Construction out of Fargo for $306,000. That'll be starting to work on the Snaky Creek project. There's an outlet over by the cemetery that's huge erosion going on where the water goes into the river there. And anyway, that will start, that project will, work will start right away. Other quick comments, they want to do another project tour like Commissioner Gross and I were on last year. That'll be on tentatively August 15th. And then there's a citizens advisory meeting coming up on April 22nd. Yeah, April 22nd from 1:30 to 3:30. Okay? I think, yeah, Commissioner Mojo's on that, past Commissioner John Everett, and a few others. I think about 5 others out of Clay County on that advisory, in that ballpark. Then the last thing I'd like to talk about, I have been working quite a bit, with Commissioner Mojo, our Administrator Steve, Rhonda, toward this PRTF. And, we've had one hearing down in St. Paul. This will be going for bonding money, and bonding money is the last part of the session. They're done with all the tax piece, any supplemental policy, all that will be done. It takes 2/3 majority to get this bonding through. And so as I've been thinking, and Representative Keeler's talked about it a little bit, Kupek said the same thing when he talked to him. Anyway, the need, and we've talked about it just a little bit here, for a potential lobbyist. And so I reached out for years. I worked very closely with a lobbyist group out of St. Paul called Gulf Public, and they helped me, helped us, I should say, in the area of soil and water conservation class group. And anyway, I reached out to them just to kind of get a feel for type of fees, work they do. And anyway, Pierre Ouellet, one of their directors, reached out to me, and on Sunday, he sent me some information. So I want to pass this out to each of you and just give an idea if we would ever be in the mood for a lobbyist to help us with this. I see, for me, and you all have, some of you have been through this before with the jail, but just for us to get where we want to be on this, I don't know how we're going to do it without a lobbyist. That's, I think we can do well in a small area, but when it comes to statewide votes. So I just want to give this for information today. If the chair and Steve would like to put this on the agenda for next week, if you'd be open to that, maybe we could have a deeper dive into it and a discussion. But I just wanted to present it out today.
Just in regards to that, I think the discussion's worth having, but I think we need to hear from staff, Steve. This isn't something that the board itself is.
Right, and I might piggyback onto the conversation. This is something that we've talked about at our committee. That's why Commissioner Krabanoff brought it forward today. I've certainly been part of the dialogue with staff, particularly Rhonda and Administrator Larson after our hearing last week. It has become really apparent now that we have 19 and 20 and the need is growing. Counties that have signed on resolutions of support. When you just look at the sheer manpower that it's going to take to schedule the meetings, this is now beyond our local legislative representatives. This is statewide meetings and really needing to, Hortman's office. There's just a limit in how much networking we can do with limited visits to St. Paul. I mean, when you look at per person, it's going to cost us about $600 a trip, really. And now as we get to the end of session, we really need to have someone down there making at least every other day contacts with these folks as hearings are going to come up. And so, I certainly would open it up for staff's response, but given the situation that I recall we were in with the correctional facility, certainly there was a point where we did feel like hiring a lobbyist did make sense to make those connections. We were doing it with a joint county, so it probably didn't equate to the what we were wanting, but really the goal here is to get on the bonding tour this summer. Understanding we're asking in phases, but really feel like this would be an opportunity to do the most outreach, if you will.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think both commissioners said it very well. I think one of the things that I would want to clarify is we've, in my update, I provide some information that we've been working with Representative Keeler and also Klein McCarthy as far as getting some figures from a pre-design design standpoint. As you recall, when we set this forward as a legislative priority as a county, we looked at establishing a facility that was right around $20 million. As Commissioner Mojo has mentioned, we kind of have changed that adjustment from the standpoint of asking for the funding into a phased approach based on feedback from Representative Keeler. She's waiting for some information to hear back from a cost perspective, and I think from a support standpoint, I think it's important to have a voice down there every day. It's as from a cost standpoint, it's costly to be down there, but that provides us one touch point. The benefit of having a lobbyist is that's going to get us somebody up there probably multiple days in the Capitol having conversations. And so I think I would support this. I think my big concern would be is in the event that if that $10 million ask became something much less, I would think we would maybe want to have a conversation in more detail, but otherwise, as it sits now with a $10 million ask phased approach with additional dollars next year, I think that it would make a great deal of sense for us to look into that.
I guess if we're going to be talking about lobbyists, I appreciate the fact that, Commissioner Kraboff's maybe worked with these folks, but I wonder if we should be, looking at who we've used before too. If we're going to be doing a lobbyist, we haven't used a lobbyist a whole lot. And, if we're going to do it, I guess I would just like to know who we've used before and what successes have we had. I know we've used lobbyists on a couple of federal issues with highway stuff in Washington, D.C., but I guess that's what I'd like to know. I'd like to,
Yeah, we can pull together some of that information and for next week and have. I think the intent of Commissioner Krabanoff's idea was to present it with the understanding if that would intrigue this board to have a discussion on it, and so it sounds like maybe there's some interest that we can pull that information together.
Any other discussion? Interest is there. If we've got a relationship with another firm, it's desirable that we at least see if they've got the capacity and if they want to extend it. I don't know if we're RFP or how we want to do this for these amounts.
Yeah, I think the challenge that we would run into from a time standpoint, one, an RFP wouldn't be required. Two, I think from a time standpoint, we're pretty time sensitive. Again, not that, to Commissioner Campbell's standpoint, not that we can't look at other options. That's certainly something that the committee spoke about. I think Commissioner Krabanoff reached out in this case because it would, provide, at least for our discussion today or at the future board, an idea of what that cost may look like for consideration from you all. So,
Okay.
And part of that, again, is just the personal relationship I had with this group, during that time. So I've seen their work done, and I've also have a very trusting, and a high confidence level of what they do. So that's why I reached out to them.
and I think in the letter that was handed out, it also provides, not only have they done work with the Soil and Water District, but they also have worked closely in human service and other
They've done
areas.
PRTF once before.
Right.
Anyway, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. This week, Wednesday, the 3rd, I attended the Ending Homelessness Task Force over at Fargo City Hall. Had a recap of James Matthews' recent visit and presentation. He coordinated the activities in Milwaukee where they had a 45% decrease in homelessness. As a result, Housing First skips transitional housing, and we looked at some of the obstacles out there, and part of it is state funding. And I had a talk with Dan Molly, and I think maybe we need to ask our human services folks to see what state funding is out there that could be used for either transitional housing or possibly if our partners across the river get into a Housing First program, it may be something we want to sit down and see if it's something that could be supported by the state of Minnesota for activities on our side. So that's going to be an ongoing discussion. I'll keep you informed of it. On Thursday, the 4th, I remotely attended the Emergency Communication Network Legislative Committee. We're trying right now. The efforts are underway to put together at least one omnibus bill that's going to include some of the legislation that's been proposed for the communication systems. There are currently 4 armor funding bills, and we need to be more cohesive and consistent in putting that together. Talk about enhanced swatting charges, legislation would make it a felony. What's being proposed right now is, and for those who don't know, swatting is where people call in a police emergency indicating an armed, violent activity going on at a location, and it's simply to harass the people at that location. The police respond pretty hot, and it puts people in jeopardy. It's not been a huge issue in our state, but it is a growing problem nationally, with swatting calls being directed to judges and elected officials, as well as law enforcement personnel. So that legislation right now would enhance the gross misdemeanor charges up to a felony if it involves an elected official, a judge, or a police officer. The legislation I talked to you about with mental health calls, that where there would be liability for county commissioners and for counties if the PSAP doesn't send mental health calls directly to a mental health emergency line. That never got out of committee. They've gotten no hearings, so it doesn't look like that's going anywhere. Also, pensions for telecommunication specialists, that got no hearings, and that looks like it's gonna die in committee. On the 6th, excuse me, on the 5th, I had a meeting with Clint Nesmith, CEO of Resource Development Corp. He is doing a feasibility study for a merger, a limited merger between the EDC and the Chamber of Commerce. And he wanted, basically, it was a pretty comprehensive discussion about our needs and what's being met and what isn't. I think we covered a lot of territory that at the end of the discussion, it appeared to me that he had covered with Moorhead officials the day before. And that is, again, going to be an ongoing report. But I indicated what some of the needs I perceive on the Minnesota side, including supporting our rural towns in their efforts to have economic development, and further support for the activities we're going to have in downtown Moorhead in trying to get businesses developed there. Yesterday, I had a discussion with Joel Paulson, the Executive Director of our Diversion Authority, regarding some pending discussions on the contract and other issues that are coming up. Some of those issues are going to be covered in the planning board for the diversion, and Commissioner Campbell's very well aware of what the issues are, and that is, again, another line of thought that will be developing here in the next few weeks. And that completes my report. Steve, what do you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I participated in highway tracking, which has been well covered. At the board's request, I then worked on the letter of concern, sent to Representative Kupek in regards to the broadband legislation that we discussed. I also sent it to our other local legislators. I did get a response back from Representative Keeler thanking the board for their update. She was not aware of this potential issues that we discussed. That afternoon, I met with, worked with Darren and Anna on benchmarking positions for our upcoming market study. We had, I guess, multiple meetings last week. We're hoping to finalize some of those discussions here this week. See, the third, I met with Joe Olson on a series of projects here at the county. Also met with representatives from the city of Moorhead and the Department of Justice in regards to the grant that the city of Moorhead received that had shared roughly just under $5,000 with us that we designated towards the drug court program. We're working with the Department of Justice to verify the funding mechanism and how it's tracked, because the drug court's technically under the court, which is the state of Minnesota, not the county. We're trying to clarify the verbiage that needs to get done to ensure that drug court can get those funds. On the 4th, I met with Klein McCarthy in regards to the PRTF and some funding needs for the House File 4204. On the 4th, I also met with David Heyer from DEED, Karen Lauer from City of Barnesville, Greg Wagner from West Central Initiative, and Matt Jacobson in regards to the project in Barnesville, which we spoke about. Also at that meeting was Art Rosenberger. He's representing Callahan Meats, which is in the process of purchasing the business out there, and so there'll be more to come on that. On the 5th, I met with Derek LaPointe, Dan Mawley, and Mayor Carlson had popped in during that. They wanted to report to you all that they were extremely appreciative for your quick letter of support for their TIF. It did have received both a House and Senate file, and so they're hopeful that that will move forward. If you've been out there lately, it's quite an adjustment. They've started tearing down the south end. It's actually walled up now, just past where the old Jay Smoke and Barbecue and Krebs family farms were set up there, and so it looks a little bit different. I did also express our county's concern from a standpoint of having the bus stop up at 15th Avenue North for both the DMV and the detox facility. On the 5th, I met with the ARPA committee that has been addressed. That will come before the board next week. I also spoke with Representative Joy in regards to flood mitigation and the Minnesota ask of $52.2 million. He did indicate that that was jacketed. Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say that this morning there was a bill introduced, House File 5332 for $52.2 million for flood mitigation for Clay and Wilkin counties and the city of Moorhead. Representative Joy, Keel, and Kupek, and Keeler, all three of them signed on to it, so that's really exciting.
That's wonderful news. We thank our legislators for working that and bringing that forward. Just of note, it's a Severe Weather Awareness Week, started yesterday. If you go to the sheriff's and the county website, you'll see information. Today's severe storms, lightning, and hail. There'll be information every day for our citizens and our employees. On Thursday, there'll be a tornado drill. Sirens will be going off citywide. But also we'll be going off within our buildings at 1:45 and then also at 6:45 in the evening, not so much in our buildings, but for our citizens with the sirens. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Brian?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sarah? Darren?
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair, on February 13th is when that door swings and the access panels was approved from the board for the detox.
Okay, any other business for the good of the order? If not, we're adjourned.